trout set, but yeah. Definitely was.
Alright, today we're going to be tying one of my blue-winged olive patterns that I call the seasonal help. I fish this under an indicator. I also will tie it behind a small blue-wing dry and not put any floating on it, but just let it sit right in the film. I also will tie this with a natural strip peacock quill instead of the blue-winged olive color that I'm using on this one. Both work very well for blue wings and for PMDs. So in the hook, nope. All right, so in the vise, I have the Diachii 1150 in a size 18. All right, so we're going to start the thread about 2 eye lengths back and do counter spin this thread. We want it as flat as it can be. Trim your thread off. I meant to do this before I started. I'm going to reposition this hook just slanted down just for a while I tie in that tail. But I'm going to bring the thread all the way down the bend of that hook, about halfway. All right, we're going to be using dark Pardo CDL for the tail. I thought I had a feather out, but clearly I didn't. So I'm just going to take a few fibers. You don't need a ton for this fly, maybe 5 or 6. It's a lot more than 5 or 6. Those bottom fibers are a little thicker at the base. Anyway, so I'm going to pull that just straight off like that so the tips line up. I'm going to just yank it and it comes right off. I'm going to measure this. I want this tail to be just about the shank of the hook. Be a little longer on this one, but don't go too much longer. Get that tied in. Check your length. Okay, I'm good. And I'm just going to wrap up with smooth touching wraps. Try to keep that on top. Come in and trim those out. I'm going to go ahead and flip that hook back straight. All right. For this next part, I'm going to use, as you all know, or have seen, I use this a lot. This is a peacock quill, just stripped. This is in the blue-winged olive color. So I'm going to tie it in by the tip. I'm going to counter spin my thread a little bit more. I'm just going to take this all the way down to where I tied in, almost there, to where I tied in that tail. I'm going to take a wide loop back up so I don't build up bulk as I start going. You'll see I'm staying well behind the eye of the hook on this fly. Even though it's not a ton of materials, I mean, it's a size 18 hook, and you'll end up crowding the eye really quickly with this pattern, so just be careful of that. I'm going to carefully start my quill. Hold it real gentle on that first wrap. There, once you have a couple wraps, you can, I don't like that. There you go. So hold it gentle on that first one. Kind of got to go slow here so you don't nick it on the hook. There you go. And just wrap forward. I'm going to do a trap wrap. One in front, and just pull that right out. All right. I'm going to take some Solarez BoneDry to protect this quill. You don't need a lot. because you don't want to build up any bulk with this. So if you see it about to put a big drop on there, go and wipe some off. But make sure it is good and covered all the way around. Hit it with your torch. Alright, make sure that's good and cured. Next, I'm going to use the Veevus in Pearl in a medium size. I'm going to come right from where I just tied that, come on my side of the hook, and then use a thread to pull that over. And then I'm going to tie this all the way back to where my thread's at the point of the hook. Then go ahead and bring my thread back up. For this next part and for the thorax of the fly, I'm going to be using this micro tubing in purple. With this camel thread, this purple kind of dulls down a little bit. It looks really nice as a thorax, and add some segmentation on there also. Make it look a little buggy. Alright, so leave, when you do tie this on, go ahead and leave a little bit extra so you have something to grab onto to pull and cut. Get a good wrap and then really stretch that as you come back. And this stuff really flattens out a good bit. Make sure you come back all the way to that where you ended that tie-in for that flash. Now all I'm going to do is just kind of even this head out a little bit, or thorax a little bit, but not too much, because you're going to build up some more bulk. Grab that tag, pull up, clip it. Now I don't use a rotary on this. I just do this by hand. I do 4 wraps up. There's 1, it's 2, 3, and 4. And make sure you keep a lot of tension. Go ahead and do a 1 drop wrap. I'm hitting everything, do 2 drop wraps. And then pull down and really suck that thread up to where you just tied that. Don't pull too tight when you cut this. Just a little tension, just so you don't lose it. And then just go ahead and wrap over where you trim that. Again, so you don't lose it. Alright, so now I'm going to keep my thread right where I ended that tie-in. Make sure it's real tight. Alright. Next, I'm using 2 CDC feathers. And you can grab ones, you really don't, they don't have to be perfect. But I have one in blue winged olive, then I have one in brown. And all I do, I'll kind of stroke the fibers back and grab both by the tip. And then I just kind of lay them on top of each other and match those stems next to each other. And what I'm going to do is actually, from this feather, I'm going to look and see where there's a handful of longer ones, longer fibers, and I'm just going to grab a little chunk. Since I kind of grab these 2 and they're just kind of everywhere, I'm actually going to use these bottom ones. I'm just grabbing just a handful of each. I don't want a ton of fibers. I probably have maybe 5 of each at most. Whoop, I just pulled a bunch out. Alright, so I got some olive and some brown. Kind of roll them in my finger. I'm just going to go right in the middle. Tie it in across the hook. Do a couple turns back on my side and get those legs back to that thorax. Then I'm going to grab this side. Do that same thing. And you'll see that head's going to clean up when we come back with our flash. So now I'm going to take my flash. Well, I'll show you that side. See, it's just separated evenly. I'm going to take that flash, pull it over, make sure I don't get any CDC fibers trapped in there. And do just kind of a drop loose wrap. Make sure I have that right where I want it. Because this fly is so thin, and we use a little bit bigger flash, really make sure you take your time to get that right in the middle. So I do 2 good wraps, and I pull tight backwards. I'm going to do a couple more wraps to lock that in, trim it, and then I'm going to get my feathers, my CDC fibers back, and really cover up the rest of that flash and build my head. Come to the front, make sure you got all that flash covered. I'm just kind of matching the width of that thorax with my head and do a nice whip finish. Before I trim, before I trim these CDC fibers, I'm actually going to come through now with some Loon Thin. Just going to put a little dab on a bodkin. Come through with my other hand. Just stroke those fibers out of the way. Then I'm going to just touch right behind that flash and build up a little bit of a back. It really, it barely takes any. Go ahead and cure that just for a sec. As it's curing, you kind of get your legs pulled back up. All right, now take all those fibers, the CDC fibers. We're going to trim these legs real short, so just past the thorax. And there you have it. That is the seasonal help. The CDC fiber legs move all around in that water. And that purple looks really nice, and it's not too overwhelming. If you have a fiber that's too long, just kind of pluck it. And there it is. Tie some, go fish them, tell me what you think.